Hey there, guys. Welcome back to another awesome episode for the Paraconnection podcast. You're here with Schuler and Andy. It's just going to be myself and Andy today. The rest of the team, they couldn't make it for this podcast, but that's all right. Andy, are you ready for tonight's podcast?
Oh, absolutely. I am totally ready for this.
Awesome, man. So I say it's just going to be you and me, but that's because we're hosting the podcast. We actually have another guest for tonight's episode, correct?
Yes, we sure do. We have my friend April, who is a card reader. She reads tarot and oracle cards.
Ah, sweet, man. I know that you're kind of into that as well, so you both will be able to kind of elaborate a lot more than I will, obviously, but I'm going to pick your guys' brains with some questions. I'm pretty excited about this topic because we've not really touched base on this kind of subject before about card readings, tarot cards, and all that good stuff. But I have met a couple of people through my experiences with the paranormal and having the team that have read cards and that have, followed the guidance of them and whatnot. So I think it'll be a lot more interesting to get into the details rather than just be explained to it, about like, hey, I do this. This is different. So it's going to be cool. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's going to be very cool.
So tell us a little bit, Andy, if you don't mind, about our guest, April, how you met her, how you guys got onto the topic about card reading.
Well, I met April through Instagram, and she does live readings on her page. And I met her through a friend who introduced me to her lives, and I just loved it, and I've been going ever since. And she's very, very accurate with her readings, like incredibly accurate. And so, yeah, that's pretty much how I met her, and she's just an amazing person. So we're gonna have a lot of fun today.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm excited, Andy. And it sounds like it's a pretty cool connection you guys have because being able to do something like this, for one, is unique itself. But being able to meet someone else that feels just as comfortable and that understands it, that's another thing. Because, typically you don't find people like that in everyday life. And more or less, you have to find them through social media. So
Exactly.
I'm glad you guys were able to make that connection. And I'm very excited and happy that you were able to bring her on the podcast. So,
Oh, me too.
unless you have anything else, Andy, I think it's time to bring April on and get this podcast rolling.
Sure, let's get started.
All right, man, let's go. All right, guys, so we got the podcast rolling. We have April on with us. April, thank you for joining our podcast today.
Oh, you're welcome.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. How are you?
That's good. Pretty good. Hanging out with Andy, talking about the paranormal as always. That's typically what we do. Right, Andy?
Kind of my thing.
So today, Andy shared with me that you would like to speak about card reading, correct?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Cartomancy.
Awesome. How did you get into such a thing? And when did all this start for you with the paranormal?
I have been dealing with the paranormal all my life. When I was a little baby, I would see things that nobody else would see. I would talk to people that weren't there, for people that are just, not seeing things. It was a little odd. I would recognize things that belonged to people that were deceased that I'd never met in the physical realm before. So I've grown up with it. It's just something that's been kind of a part of my life. And then as I've been growing up, I've been into divination and kind of psychic things, doing mediumship, and I've been doing that for over 20 years now. I started out trying to use playing cards like Andy does. It didn't work so well. I branched out into tarot, and I did dowsing for a little while with pendulums and that kind of stuff. So I've had, it's kind of been like ingrained in me. My whole family kind of believes in this sort of stuff, and it's really cool to have like affirmations going, through my life. Like, this isn't weird. This is something that's just normal.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's more of like a build up for you. It's just a
Mhm.
natural thing.
Right.
Nice. Yeah, that's really nice that you have that you've actually grown up with it. Because myself, I was taken to church. I was told about, spirits a little bit and God and
Mhm.
everything, but I
Mhm.
never had any type of exposure to practicing to understand how to connect to the spirit world or what to expect or what to look
Mhm.
for. So it wasn't until I was in high school when I was starting to get into it. But I find that really cool that you've had the exposure since you were real little.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate in that aspect, because I know like a lot of people when they get into the fact where they're tapping into that higher vibration and that third eye of theirs, and they're seeing these things, it tends to freak them out a lot. And so
Oh
with
yeah.
somebody like me, when I've been growing up with it, it's kind of just been like second nature, and I've been the one to be like, oh no, you're not going crazy, it's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So it may not seem natural, but it really is. It's just some
It
people
is.
are a little more sensitive.
Right, exactly.
So April, for you, I'll go with this question, then I can let Andy jump on one here.
Mhm.
What would you say really stood out to you for the first time regarding the paranormal before you got into anything?
Um, I think the first thing that really stuck out to me is the fact that when I was younger, I was really sensitive to like predicting the future. And so it would freak me out because I would pretty much get in tune to when, because I live in California, so we have earthquakes all the time.
Okay.
So I would be able to predict when the earthquakes were going to happen, and that freaked me out. Um, but just being, I don't know if it was my spirit guides that were kind of guiding me towards, hey, this is going to happen, or if it was just my higher vibration that was kind of picking up on it. But that was one of the biggest things that kind of stuck out when I was growing up. And then once my grandmother passed away, she was the first person that I really knew that passed away, I started being able to communicate with her. And that was like the second biggest thing, was I would see her manifest, and she would play pranks on us, and I would be able to kind of feel her around. Like as soon as she passed, like I just got this feeling, and it's just stuck with me while I've been doing mediumship, that there's just this, I don't know, like I describe it as like there's this heat, like you can just feel this warmth, and you know that there's something else that's there that you might not be able to see depending on if you're like clairvoyant or something. But it's there, and it's really awesome.
Wow. That's really unique, especially for you to be able to go in detail like that. I mean, that's really neat that you were able to experience such a thing and for it to be so positive, such as your grandma.
Right, yeah, because I know that a lot of times when people like happen to come upon, like a spirit or something that they're not familiar with, it's like it's really jarring and it's really scary, because it's like, oh my god, like there's something there. So it's really interesting to kind of approach it from like it's not scary, it's just kind of like how it is kind of viewpoint.
Exactly. Yeah, and for some people, if they don't have a familiar spirit or something that they feel comfortable with, it can actually, from what I've been told, make them more reclusive and not want to get involved with the paranormal. And then they kind of close their energy off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, whoa, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like this was already freaking me out. Like they're gonna, because there's like a common misconception about like, the spirits are gonna come and get me, there's a demon, all that kind of stuff. And so of course it's gonna be like, no, I don't want to do that again.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and for people like that, I would highly advise to be safe. Rather be safe than sorry. Because if you don't understand or you don't know how to approach the paranormal field or how to get in tune with that type of thing, it is better to be safe than sorry and, seek someone that does already know how to do things or just research a little more, but most definitely. But I'm glad your experiences turned out to be a little more positive and it's got you to where you're at.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Andy, do you got anything for April right off?
I find it interesting though that your experience with your grandmother is very it's a lot similar to the one that I had with my own. And I don't know, it's amazing to me how much we have in common. Since I've been sitting here listening to your story, I didn't realize that we had so much in common.
You know, Andy, thinking back to it, we actually had Andy come on an investigation with us, April, just last night. We try to do investigations, every so many weeks, every other week throughout the month. And last night was Andy's first investigation that he did with PILT Paranormal. Of course, with him being in Michigan and us, we're located in Indiana, we had to do it via video chat on Skype. So it was... Yeah, it was a new approach for us, and I think it was a new environment and approach for Andy as well. You basically had to close your eyes, you had to meditate, take whatever techniques that you utilize, and try to concentrate on the energy coming through a phone call, and Andy was able to do his best to describe what he felt at the location. It got to a point where with his meditation, and that's what I was also highlighting with the tarot card reading and the different type of techniques that you guys are using. I feel that perhaps maybe it's helping Andy to open up on another level here to be able to do this like long distance energy reading. In a sense, it's some type of practice. And
yeah, absolutely.
And I just find it fascinating with what we have spoken about. It could have helped with last night's investigation because Andy was helping me guide. It was pitch black. He couldn't see anything unless we shined a flashlight. But one of my investigators that was behind me, Nate, he couldn't flash the flashlight in front of me the entire time. So I asked Andy to guide me to his best ability. So he told me to go straight. I told him I had stopped because there was just nothing else to really go to. There's nothing around me. And then he concentrated a little more, told me to go left. And left was where a headstone and a tree was at. And it was a headstone of a man. And he had told us maybe 3 minutes prior to this that he felt the energy of a man.
Wow.
So I do kind of find that intriguing that Andy could be possibly tapping into energies from two different states. And this card reading technique could really be helping him get on that level.
Absolutely. That is really cool. Especially with like being so far apart. I've been learning, I've been taking a Reiki class actually, and we've been learning about distance Reiki and how to send healing to other people that aren't physically with us. And it's just amazing that there's this energy that goes throughout the whole world and it connects us all, even though we may be far apart. And tapping into that and learning how to access that is like so important to what you guys do.
Nice. Well, that's interesting, April.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun. Yeah, it's been a blast learning how to do that. So
I'm sure it is. Yeah, because it's not something you can learn just every day or someone's going to come up to you and talk to you about it. But thinking back to it in 2017, I was on a podcast as a guest and one of the co-hosts, her name was Jen. And when Jen was talking to me through this podcast, she was sending me vibes of what she called Reiki. And this is the first time I've ever heard about it. This is the first time I've ever had anything done like this. And the closest thing that I can describe to any type of sensation or feeling is it was like a warm, vibrant feeling that I was kind of sensing while the other host, Jerry at the time, was talking to one of my other investigators that joined me. And she was completely quiet. And it was just a concentration measure. And I was just sitting there, just doing my best to meditate. And that's the sensation I felt. It was warm and it was vibrant. And I don't know what else to say about it, but it was unique. And I do recall that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Andy, do you have anything else for April along with Reiki, or did you want to jump back into the tarot card reading?
Well, actually, in terms of Reiki, I have had Reiki done on me as well. I was completely unfamiliar with Reiki. I wasn't even barely involved with the paranormal at this time, but I was in the hospital where I had some surgery done. And after the surgery, I kept getting these fevers. So I was constantly getting really bad headaches and I was sweating and just really having a tough time. And one of the nurses had actually come in and she rubbed her hands together and then just kind of like swept them over me and then she would shake her hands in another direction and then continue. You know, like she was kind of sweeping away that energy, that bad energy that was, you know, in me, to kind of get rid of my fever. And you're right about the feeling, Schuler, because it's a very warm feeling.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a vibrational feeling as well.
Right.
And yeah, it was a very amazing experience for me, because I had never experienced anything like that before, and I was very young at the time, so I didn't really understand what she was doing, but I kept asking her to come back and do it again because it felt really good. And you know, at the time it was the only thing that would really, you know, keep calm.
Yeah, I totally understand that too there, Andy, because it's like the sensation is obviously positive energy coming through. And the reason why Jen was sending the Reiki vibes to me was because I was explaining to them from doing previous investigations, I felt like I had some type of negative energy or entity attached to me. So that's why she was sending those to me, to try to help me cut this thing out, or, you know, push it back to some degree, make it weaker. Yeah, I understand, Andy. It is a nice feeling, and it's honestly something I should try to practice in more, because depending on the type of energy you may have connected to you, it's going to take more than one time to get rid of it and to get yourself on a higher level of positive energy. It's not something that you would want to take lightly to learn just off the internet, you know, because people could lead you wrong. They could, you know, miss some information, maybe not understand it themselves. So to be able to try to connect with someone that knows it or that's practicing it, that could be a better step if you can't take the classes, for sure.
Right.
And not only that, but I believe it's something also where you can't practice it unless you're going for a license and things like that, because it is a medical thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of hospitals that have started to implement using Reiki with their patients. It can, in certain states, go along with like a masseuse or like a holistic type of healing. So depending on where you are, it might or might not be attached to like a medical background. But when you first start learning and you go through what's called an attunement, the master that you're learning under basically connects you with the Reiki power, the universal life force, so that you're able to harness it while you're doing the healings. But before that, it's just kind of you're using your own energy at will. So like the first time I started, I wasn't attuned at the time, so I got super tired.
Wow.
I like the whole day I was a wreck. So yeah, being able to practice that, you have to go through that attunement first, and then you're able to draw from that life force and not use your own power. Yeah.
That's really interesting, April.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, I knew that doing Reiki would be pretty demanding, but I didn't know to that extent. And then you kind of opened my mind to this whole medical practice. Like now we're talking about a spiritual medicine being mixed in with physical science medicine, you know, and those two typically don't coexist together, because scientists and spiritualists just kind of bump heads sometimes. But that's really cool that there's some type of unification of these two medical practices being brought together.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really interested when I started hearing about that, because I was like, oh, there's no way, because this is totally different from, you know, medical stuff, but it fits together really well, because a lot of people, like in hospitals and like through physical therapy and stuff, they utilize this as a way to promote healing, which is really awesome, because it just kickstarts what your body's already doing, but it's using that higher vibration.
Wow. That is really interesting. I hope it continues to be looked into, and it finally gets somewhere to where it can help a lot more people than what it's doing now.
Right. Me too. Yeah.
That'd be wonderful. Man, we're over here jumping on Reiki, man. That's a good topic, but you guys are the card specialists. I want to know some more about that.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have to bring April back on, Andy, and do a whole like Reiki segment if you guys are all right with that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So, April, I'm going to start with this question. I'll let Andy kind of tie in with you. What got you started with card reading? We kind of know how you got into the paranormal field and all that now, but what got you into card reading itself?
So, card reading, I've always had like a fascination with it, because when I was super little, I was trying to, like read people's love fortunes and all that good stuff. But as I grew up, I just kind of saw that it's a possibility of using it as a tool to communicate with spirits and other, depending on what you believe in, the universe, deity, people that have passed away that you want to communicate with. It's like a tangible way to see what they're talking about, what they want to let you know, what's coming up, maybe something that you're not looking at. It's like a way to introspectively look at what you've got going on. And I thought that was really cool, because a lot of people, like with mediumship, you go to a medium and a medium tells you like, oh, they're saying this, and I get this feeling, but it's not something that you can see. Yeah. So you're taking somebody at their word, which I'm not saying that they're wrong or right, but it's basically you're kind of the middleman, and you're funneling that message to somebody else. Whereas if you're using tarot or oracle cards or mediumship cards, the person that may not be able to directly get that message from the spirit is able to see what they're saying. So it's a really good way to kind of show somebody and interpret, whatever the message is for them, and help them see that, I'm not just picking this out of the air. This is what's coming through.
Gotcha. Okay, so the cards can kind of be utilized as like a hint, if you will, or like a guidance tool.
Exactly, like a tool. Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, this can be a personal opinion or something that you may have learned, but why do you think cards are like the ideal tool? Why not something else like a coin or a piece of paper or something?
For tarot, like I use a couple different decks when I do mediumship.
Okay.
And I feel like the cards, depending on which deck I move to use at the time, they have a broader range. Whereas like a coin or something may be limited to like a yes or no question, or something that's a little more on the surface. But with the cards, you can go into more depth, because they have a lot more that not only that they represent, but that you can glean out of them and use your intuition with.
Okay, that makes sense, April. So it's more so of like, I guess this is pretty far-fetched, but like a Ouija board, but these cards have their own personal answers, and whichever one you pull, that's what you're being guided to pull.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I've never really understood why cards were like the go-to item for this, but you breaking that down for me, that helps me a lot. And for any of our listeners, that may be new to it or never understood, I feel like that could really help them understand as well.
Awesome.
So thank you, April.
Yeah, no problem.
Andy, do you got anything?
Well, speaking on April's multiple decks, I find it hilarious, because when I come to April for a reading, oh my God, because her deck, let me just say this, her decks just absolutely love me. Yes. Because I can ask her any question in the entire universe, just anything that pops into my head, and every single time, it doesn't matter what deck she's using or anything, it will always give me the most positive answer that's possible for those cards.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we don't understand why. But it's insane, because they're always giving me the absolute best cards in the entire deck.
It's true.
Wow. Andy, you may just have some type of positive charm attached to you, man. You're meant for it.
Yeah, we're thinking. But yeah, I mean, I'll ask things like, gee, I don't know, is the paranormal really the right path for me? And I'll get something like the 10 of Pentacles, or
Yeah.
which is insane because the 10 of Pentacles, pentacles are coins. So the 10 of Pentacles basically shows that yes, the paranormal is very profitable for me.
Yes.
In fact, with the 10 of Pentacles, that means it's insanely profitable for me. So
Wow. Now, how are you able to read from that card to know that it's profitable and it's a good sign?
well, with tarot, it's more like symbolism,
Okay.
Mhm.
whereas with playing cards, like what I do with Cartomancy, it's a lot more intuition based, because with playing cards you don't have so many images to go on.
Gotcha.
With a tarot card, basically everything on the card, every piece of the image is symbolism.
Mhm.
Okay.
So yeah, each symbol on the card tells you more and more about what that card is trying to tell you. But with playing cards, you have to really rely more on your intuition and what you're feeling about that card.
So, Andy, in April, for tarot reading, that's more of a graphic inclination of what you can read from and see. But you say cartomancy, is that correct, Andy?
Yes.
That's more of intuition where you see a number and the shapes, but you kind of have to feel what they're trying to represent to you.
Right.
Okay, so that's more of a higher up type of reading where you know you're on a higher spiritual level and you can relieve your energy to be read into the card more than relying on a graphic.
Right. I mean,
Right.
with playing cards, there is
Okay.
some slight symbolism in the cards, but not as much as there is with tarot.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, because for the longest time I thought that tarot was typically the only type of card reading, at least with the graphics. I mean, I figured there were different decks and ways of reading the cards, but I didn't know that you could go out and get like normal playing cards, a bicycle deck, and that could still help you be into it, one with the energy.
Well, with playing cards were actually, they started off being used as a divination tool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were used for divination long before they were used for actual games. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of controversy between like which came first, tarot or the playing cards, that sort of thing, because the actual history behind both isn't really all that well known.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's a lot of controversy in terms of which came first, but the both of them do go back a very, very long way.
Mhm.
And so yeah, there's been controversy over it for centuries basically. But yeah, they were used for divination like right off the bat. So that's kind of why playing cards were made. I believe the Chinese may have started it. There's a little bit of controversy in terms of that as well, because some people say it came from the Middle East, and some say it came from China and started with like mahjong type cards.
Oh, okay.
Because the first playing cards that ever existed were mahjong tiles.
Wow.
Those were the first playing cards, as far as we know anyway.
So there's a lot more history to card reading than people make
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So give or take, how early of a time period do you think that card reading was a thing 1300s, maybe even earlier?
At least the 14th century.
Okay. That's really interesting. I mean, obviously, I personally can believe that it's very possible it goes back that far, because I mean, witchcraft and voodoo and hoodoo, all this different type of magic that's been said to be practiced, that's been going on for years. And there's always symbolism, there's always different artifacts or relics being involved. So
all of those religions that you mentioned, they do use cards for divination. Yeah.
So Andy, you were saying earlier that April is the person that inspired you to get into card reading. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely.
So what made you feel that you could be intuitive with card reading by just seeing April's post? Was it talking to her, or did you feel some type of influence that you could do it? Or
Well, as I said, I was introduced to her page by a friend, and I had gotten into her lives, and for me, it was because I was working on my intuition to begin with. So when I started getting into her lives, I started getting on YouTube and kind of checking further into like what she does and how it can be done and things like that. And because I was starting to get really, really interested in it, because like I said, she's incredibly accurate.
yeah.
And so I'm sitting here on YouTube, and then all of a sudden I start coming across these divination with playing cards videos. And so I start looking into that, and I'm like, you know what? I can't afford to get a tarot deck right now, but I can afford playing card deck.
Yeah.
So I went and got one, and I jumped into it, and I've been doing it ever since. Now it was kind of a pain in the butt because, like I said, it does rely more on intuition, so it took me a while to get started. But now that I'm, kind of getting in the flow of it, it's getting easier and easier with every reading that I. Like April was saying to me the other day, there are times when we'll be in a live, and somebody will ask her a question, and then my intuition will just automatically pick up and go, oh, I can answer this.
Nice. No, but that is really cool that you two are able to have this ability and help people, and possibly, you two could even collaborate and help more people, or, have some type of like confirmation. Well, April got this. Well, Andy got this as well. And you two aren't together in the same room, but you give the same answer at two different times, but in the same day, and that could help people, see just how real this type of technique is. And it's also building your guys' individual energies and also collaborating as a team. So, I mean, I think that'd be a pretty neat test.
That's absolutely true. In fact, we did collaborate. We did collaborate not too long ago. It was on
oh, nice.
Friday the 13th, actually.
Yeah.
That's a perfect day to do it.
Right.
Yeah. But we collaborated on Friday the 13th, and yeah, everybody was telling us how accurate we were, and our answers did correlate with one another, and it was a very amazing experience, and I loved it, and I do hope that we can do it again. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it was just wonderful, and I love helping people with my readings and things like that. So it was a lot of fun.
That's great, Andy. Nice. So, April, with you jumping into the card reading and helping people, let's go back to from the set time that you started this and up until now where you're at. What have you seen as a change, from start to where you're currently at? Have there been many changes? Have you gotten better with this technique?
Yes. It's all about practice, and at first I was really hesitant because I had read for myself and like a couple people that I know, but I hadn't really put myself out there, so I was really, really nervous. And I was doubting myself a lot. I was like, oh, is my intuition on point? Am I okay? Like, am I reading too much into this or not enough? And now I do tarot every day.
Nice.
And it has changed my life. I'm the type of person that looks on the not so great side of things.
Yeah.
And in doing this and helping people and just opening up to that higher vibration, I have changed my outlook on things, and I've just experienced so much positive outcomes that come from this, positive manifestations. Like, it's just been crazy. I've been able to communicate with a lot of different people's loved ones and bring them messages, from the other side, and let them know, hey, I'm okay, I'm with you, I love you, I'm still proud of you. And seeing that and how I've been impacting people has given me a lot of fulfillment. I feel really blessed to be able to do this.
That's wonderful, April, especially you feeling so confident about such a gift,
Yeah.
And the positive impact.
The first I was so scared. I was like, oh no, I'm crazy. I'm making this stuff up. I had a lot of bad self-talk. But I mean, once you get past that and you just tap into that intuition and you just know, this is in my mind for a reason. I'm feeling these feelings because of, there's a spirit that's guiding me towards it. Once you embrace that, it just opens up so many doors.
I'm sure. Yeah. And I couldn't agree any more with you about the whole not feeling confident about yourself. It's like, oh, I can't do this. I'm just hoping I can, or I'm crazy, or,
right.
Whatever it is. I mean, I'm still like that to this day. I'm pretty bad about it. But once you break that barrier, and I'm sure you've done it more than enough to this point, you feel so much better about yourself, and knowing that you can help people with the ability that you have to your degree. April, that's just wonderful.
Right.
That you can feel that way and help others.
Yeah, I'm very blessed.
So April, before I throw it back to Andy, I have a question regarding your abilities. What would you say would be one of the most outstanding, memorable experiences that you've had reading cards for people?
Wow.
At least one of the thousands that you may have.
Everything is so different. I mean, I get the same questions over and over again, but it never seems to go the same way twice. And some of the questions that I get asked are just off the wall.
Yeah.
So when I get those unique questions and I'm able to look at the answer and kind of help them out, it's just, I don't know. It's I feel blessed because I'm able to kind of get into people's into their lives. I'm able to help them, and I'm able to kind of see things that they can't see, and I'm bringing it to their attention. And just, I don't know, it's just, it's a unique place to be, because I feel like I'm the fly on the wall. I get to hear the interesting conversations that nobody else does.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, that's really outstanding that, they feel so unique to you. You can't really categorize one better than the other, because
no,
I mean, how can you?
Right.
Man. Well, that's fantastic. It's cool that you can experience that to that degree, and it's always something different, but in the end, you're still helping people. So it's a good thing.
Right.
Andy, let's shoot it over to you. What do you have for April?
Well, I can totally relate with her on, not really feeling it when you're first starting out, because it's very, very nerve-wracking, because when you first start out, you kind of get it in your head that, oh my God, am I going to be accurate? How is this going to work? Is it going to work? And things like that. And it's very nerve-wracking, and it gets to you. And when I first started doing readings, which was not that long ago at all. For me, it was like, oh my god, that was like the worst reading ever. I totally suck at this, and you know, it really got into my head. But at the same time, though, every single person I read for said that I was 100% spot on, and that they absolutely appreciated the reading.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Wow,
And
Andy.
for me, that was just amazing. Like I couldn't believe that these people were so appreciative of what I was doing, because to me, I was horrible. But you know, the more I do it, though, the better at it I become. Like in terms of combining the cards and things like that, I'm even getting better at that now. So, you know, it is a lot of practice, and it's a lot of intuition, and just, you know, a lot of times even the meanings of the cards don't matter, because sometimes what you're feeling through your intuition could be something completely different. So yeah, it's just amazing. Like each individual card has multiple meanings.
Right.
And it's just a matter of tuning into your intuition to see which meaning is correct for that reading.
Yeah, I've never thought about it like that, each card having a different category. I kind of looked at it as each card is one meaning, but if you have to break it down to the right intuitive feeling that you have for that card and that individual that you're reading, that's something else. That takes a lot of responsibility.
Yes, it definitely does.
Yeah.
So I can see where the self-confidence plays a very important part, for sure.
Yeah, because when you're doing a reading, you have to kind of stay calm and get into like that alpha state, so that you can, you know, tune into yourself to be able to read the cards. Because if you're sitting there worrying about what could possibly happen while you're doing a reading, then you're getting yourself in the way of doing that reading.
Gotcha.
Which makes it a lot more difficult. So you want to relax and just think about the cards. Don't think about anything else. You know, barely even think about the person in front of you. Just think about the cards and what's going on with the cards, and you'll be right every time.
So it's very important not to have a clouded mind, right, Andy?
Exactly.
If you're stressed or you're angry or you're upset, it's really not good to do a reading during that time.
Right, and you definitely don't want to do a reading, like, say, if you're sick, or if you're having a bad day, or, you know, your energy is off in any way, because a lot of times that can influence a reading or get in the way of it. So
Gotcha. So most definitely the technique, it can be sensitive to itself, not just yourself alone. Yeah.
absolutely, because based on like how you're feeling that day or whatever, your deck can tend to get a little sassy with you. I know April knows this very well, because it happens to her all the time, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But like one day, oh my god, there was one day where she was doing a live reading, and the death card kept coming up.
Oh no.
It wouldn't stop.
That would kind of have me set back. Like, I don't know if I want to read the cards anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that deck had to go into timeout.
So what would that mean in that case if you kept getting a repeat card, especially a repeat death card? Is it just a throw off, or does it actually have meaning?
It depends.
A death card really, it doesn't have to mean a physical death.
Right.
It could also mean like the ending of an event, or the end of troubles, or the end the end of something. It could mean the end of a relationship, or but it basically indicates the ending of something.
Okay, so not necessarily the end of life, but the end of something,
Right.
whether it's the end of your sickness or...
It can indicate the end of life, but that's not always the case.
Gotcha. Okay, that's better clarification. So,
Yeah.
April, does that happen often to you, or is that just typically when you have an off day, or?
It happens when my deck is kind of done answering questions for me.
Okay.
Like it just has a mind of its own. Sometimes it just needs some time off. Sometimes it needs to be cleansed. Sometimes it just doesn't want to talk to that particular person. But because sometimes if you're getting the same card over and over again, sometimes it's like, hey, this person really needs to know this message. But if it's getting like, if I do readings and the message is just completely out of left field, it has no bearing whatsoever on the reading, I take that as a sign that my deck is being sassy and I need to move on to a different deck or take some time off, because like it's all intuition. Like I can feel when the reading isn't for a particular person and when it is. So I have to use my intuition a lot. And with the cards too, because they have different meanings as well. Like the imagery on the tarot decks, there's so much difference in the different cards and what they could mean and what they mean together, and it's a lot of intuition on like putting it together and making like a cohesive story. So when that story kind of just doesn't make sense, it's like, okay, like I know that I need to get another deck. I have tons of decks for that reason, because one deck will just give up on me. So it doesn't happen as often as, it's not like all the time, but it'll get to a point where it's like, every couple of weeks it's like, no, I'm done.
Wow. With that being said, actually, April, I kind of chuckle, but I'm also intrigued. When you speak about the deck being done, it's like it has its own energy. Now, with the card reading, is it strictly your own energy that's going into the card, or are there other intelligent energies, such as other spirits, that help the card reading?
It's a combination. It's whoever that you're dealing with, it's part of their energy, it's part of your energy, it's their spirit team, your spirit team. It just kind of depends on who wants to give out the message at the time. Okay. But if, like, for say you're reading for yourself, I tend not to want to do that for myself because I project a lot. And so I want like an unbiased opinion, so I'll ask someone else to read for me. But if you're just strictly reading for yourself, you're basically tapping into your higher intuition. So it's basically you're talking to your higher self and that higher vibration, and you're getting all that subconscious, whatever your subconscious wants you to know. It can be influenced by your spirit guides, but mostly it's just you tapping into what you can't access in your brain.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, it's like that hidden compartment that people talk about, that 10% of the brain that we can't seem to understand.
Yeah, exactly.
That's personally where I think the soul is stored. But people look at me and they laugh, so that's all right. But no, that's really interesting, though, that it's like a combination of different spiritual forces that help the card reading. It's not just your higher energy that you can't typically tap into, but it's possibly someone else's or whatever spirit could be around you that may know something that you don't. So that's intriguing. I never thought of it like that. Wow. So, April, for you, another question I have is, when you're still, to this point, when you're still doing card readings, are you typically drained after, or are you pretty set on the, energy levels and you know how to prevent that from happening?
I've gotten to the point where I know how not to tap into my own energy. At the beginning, when I was doing card readings, I was super tired all the time.
Okay.
So it kind of takes practice, but now I know kind of how to utilize other people's energy for whatever I'm doing. And so that helps me conserve mine a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. How long would you say that took you to kind of get a hold of comfortably?
I want to say it took maybe a month or two.
Oh,
before
okay.
I really got it down, but that was like I was doing tarot every day.
Gotcha. Okay. You really put your time and effort into it. So I mean, practice makes perfect, you know?
Exactly.
That's for sure.
Exactly.
What about you, Andy? Where are you at on your level, you know, with like using energy or, you know, knowing how to cap it off?
For me, I do tend to get really drained at times when I'm doing like multiple readings, which lately I'm doing quite a bit of.
Okay.
But what I do is I'll do like a cleansing of myself, and I'll also do like a cleansing prayer, and that'll help me get rid of a lot of that negative energy, that energy that's kind of pulling me down, to bring my vibrations back up, and then I'm good after about an hour or so. So
gotcha. That's good.
That's what I do. But yeah, and in terms of April's cards giving her sass and things like that, I find that hilarious as well, because again, I'm the only person that her cards have not sassed. So
This is true.
That's good. That's great to read. It's a good reading itself, right?
Yeah.
So, April, what would you recommend for people out there that are practicing or just may not know how to rejuvenate themselves? If they do find themselves drained or in a odd situation with negative energies, what would you recommend for them to protect themselves or to get their energy back?
There's a couple different things you can do depending on what you have available to you. If you do have crystals, there's a lot of good crystals that will absorb negative energy and replace it with positive energy or repel it from you. Jet, black tourmaline, obsidian, those kind of filter out the negative energies. Also taking a cleansing bath or a shower and just feeling that negative energy kind of flow through you, out of you, and down the drain.
Okay. Andy, is that what you do as well to rejuvenate yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've got plenty of crystals on my side, and I do a lot of meditations as well to help not only to strengthen my intuition, but also to strengthen my energies as well, before and after reading.
Okay. Yeah, because I do recall you talking about your crystals. They help protect you, but they can also, there's others that can help you regain some energy, correct?
Exactly. There's a lot of different crystals for many different purposes. In fact, well, I'll talk to you about it later.
Of course. Yeah, we can make a whole nother podcast on that too. Oh, I got another good question that popped into my mind. Regarding more of the card reading, April, have you ever experienced a negative encounter of energy while reading cards? Like, are you vulnerable to negative entities attaching or attacking?
They tend not to, because I do try to keep my protections up. I do try to keep my house cleansed, and I have boundaries with spirits. But there was one thing in particular I was reading, because I do pendulum readings as well, and I was reading for this one girl, and I had spoken with her departed uncle not that long before, and I was trying to get a sense of what this guy had, what he felt about a certain person in her life. and the spirit actually reached out and took hold of my pendulum and wouldn't let it move.
Really?
And I had to basically tell him, you're not welcome here, you have to leave. I had to Florida water my whole house, I had to burn candles. So it does happen, but it doesn't happen that often, thank goodness.
That's good.
Yeah.
But it does remain a fact that while reading cards, it is possible to have a spiritual encounter that could be negative potentially. Because because in a sense, you're still contacting the spirit world, so that's opening a door.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. So having those boundaries in your mind ahead of time, like talk to your spirit team and say, you know what, like you guys are going to protect me, don't let anybody that means me harm through. Just kind of keeping that dialogue open with your spirit team, it helps a lot to keep you protected. But there's always something that can get through, so having the right tools available to you to know what to do when that happens is really crucial to your own safety.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that, April. And I really think about the correlation of having free will. And that's such a powerful weapon and tool itself. And a lot of people just don't take that into consideration or a reality. And even though we're of the physical being, flesh and bone, when it comes to a spiritual attack, you still have a spirit. At least that's my belief. We're all made of energy. So even though we're not invisible and we have these different powers that these entities have, at least not yet, you still have the power of free will. And if you don't want them to harm you or to hurt you, if you don't want them in your home, you have to use that free will to demand them, command them to leave. And then of course, saging, that's a physical way to fight back. And, holy water or prayer, whatever other, I tell people it doesn't matter what religion it comes from. It's the intention of what you're doing in your home. If it's something you're doing that is a pure intention and it comes from Christianity or Buddhism, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's good because you're trying to bring positive energy into your home. And that's exactly what the negative energy does not want.
But, it's all about intention.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people out there understand that, or they're just too afraid to care because they don't understand how to combat the unseen, the unknown. And thank you for clarifying about the card reading, because I didn't really realize that there was a possible risk. I mean, it's no different than paranormal investigating or using a Ouija board. You're still contacting the spirit world, just through a different method.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't matter, like, the medium that you use to communicate with the spirits. They're all pretty much the same.
That's right.
I know the Ouija board gets a bad rep, but it's really no worse than any other form of spirit communication.
So true.
Exactly the same with exactly the same consequences.
Yeah, that is so true, Andy. And the more that we talk about that, you and I, and then bringing other people on, that's basically, validating, verifying our claims and our opinions, like April here, that just makes me understand and see it even more that we're not the only ones thinking this, and it's obviously true. Like Andy said, the Ouija board is like the staple. It's like the president or the leader of a country. And if bad things are happening, they're going to point at the first thing they see. It's like, oh, well, that's the cause, because that's what I see all the time when bad things happen. And most horror movies, what brings a demon into the house? It's a Ouija board.
It's a Ouija board.
Whether it's The Exorcist from the 1970s or The Conjuring from the 2000s, there's always a Ouija board attached. And more often than not, true stories that do correlate with paranormal happenings or possessions, they were because of Ouija boards, because people, modern day people that don't understand the paranormal, that was the easiest thing that they could get. Everybody could buy a Ouija board from the local toy store. Everybody could have it in. At one point in time, it was a parlor game. If you didn't have one, you weren't fitting in with everyone else. So... But when it comes to other things that people aren't so familiar with, like card reading, or, you have some type of object that you're trying to connect with a deceased loved one, or you're just sitting there in the room meditating, people don't think about those things being a direct line to the spirit world, because for the most part they're closed off. And it goes back to that old saying, I got to see it to believe it. And if people don't have something to see, like a Ouija board, they don't believe that they can connect with the spirit world. They have to have something that they believe connects them to it when it's actually themselves.
Right, exactly.
Man, that's something I've never really understood, because according to law, you've got to be 16 to drive, you got to be 21 to drink, but you only got to be 8 to raise a demon.
I think I've seen that as a meme before, Andy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is such a great one. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, if you want to take over the world, at the cost of your soul and your family lineage, you can do that at the age of 8. But if you want to hang out with your friends and drink, you got to be 21 or whatever. Wow, that is something else. Andy, I've been chattering away like always. I'm a chatty Cathy. Do you have anything else for April when it comes to card reading?
Well, I did, but now I can't remember.
Well, until you do remember, what about you, Andy? Have you had any negative experiences when doing card readings, such as like something trying to throw you off or attach itself to you?
Not in terms of card reading. No.
Okay.
I mean, I have with other experiences, but not with card reading. Okay. At least not yet. I have had one experience with my ex sassing me, but that's about it. That's about as negative as it's gotten for me.
Well, that's not half bad then.
Right. So I've been very lucky in that perspective, but there's always room for it, I guess. So, you never know when it's gonna happen.
Of course. Yeah, you just kind of have to be prepared for it, kind of like April said, when any type of form of spiritual communication, or divination, you have to be ready for anything to happen, whether, to protect yourself, you're using crystals or prayer, or you're getting with your spirit guide or spirit team, and you're preparing yourself for whatever could happen. Maybe things you don't even think could happen or know to happen. It's good to take those precautions. It's better safe than sorry, like I said.
Right.
It really is. I know I learned the hard way as a 17-year-old paranormal investigator back in 2011 to most definitely be respectful, be kind, and be precautious. April, do you have anything personally that you would like to touch base on regarding card reading, or even anything outside of card reading? I think we're kind of getting up on our hour's time here, so I want to make sure you got everything out there.
I think one of the big things that is misunderstood by clients that I see a lot is that tarot and oracle readings aren't just something that you use to see the future, but it's also a way for you to look at what's going on currently. And it's a way to see, if I go down this road and I choose to do this, or if I choose not to do this, what's going to happen. And then they can take that and they can tailor their life basically to change the outcome. So tarot isn't something that's set in stone, just like pendulum reading isn't set in stone. It's just showing you what could happen if you go down this road right now, as it was. You're not doing anything differently. You're not changing your outlook or changing anything. If you just keep going down this road at the pace that you're going, this is what's going to happen. So a lot of times people kind of miss out on that. And it's so important because this is a tool for introspection. It's not just a cool parlor trick to do, or, like I'm going to, tell you who's going to win the Olympics or something like that. It's something that you can use for personal growth. And I think a lot of people really understand that. So that would be what I would leave with everybody, would be to be open to the possibilities that tarot can show you, because you always have the ability to change your destiny, because it's that free will that you were talking about.
Yeah.
You have that free will.
Makes so much sense. Yeah.
Right.
I'm thankful you guys are breaking this down so much, because not only is it helping myself learn more, but our listeners out there, you know, I'm sure there's people out there wanting to practice or might even need help with whatever personal, you know, situations they have. So I'm glad you guys are breaking it down like this. You know, April, there's actually another question that you have me that I want to bring up. So let's make this a bonus question. You
Sure.
said something about oracle reading and pendulum reading, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could you describe those and kind of give some differences about them compared to themselves and also tarot? Because I've not personally really known anything about it till today.
Yeah, no problem. So tarot is just the traditional card reading where it has 78 cards. You can read reversals, which are upside down cards, or not. It's up to you. I feel like it adds more depth to the reading if you include reversals. But it's basically an in-depth story that you're basically approaching these cards, asking about, you know, something general or something specific, and these cards are telling you a story about how you're going to get from point A to point B. It can be positive and negative. There's a lot of different meanings in different cards, and, you know, whatever the situation may be with certain people. With oracle cards, they're a little bit more open-ended. They're mostly positive. They're a little bit more general in terms of the information that they're giving. So when I go for an oracle reading, I'm mostly giving like general advice, or I use them in terms of like, what does your spirit team want you to know going forward? What are some qualities that somebody likes about you? Or, you know, what are your strengths? Things of that nature is more for oracle readings. For the pendulums, you can use a pendulum board that it kind of looks like a spirit board or a Ouija board, where there's letters and numbers and things of that nature. Or you can just go for it without a board, which I don't use a board. But I keep the questions basically to yes or no or maybe. Because there's only so many ways that the pendulum can move. But I feel like for, you know, on the surface, like real quick answers, the pendulum is good. But if you need something more in depth and more complex, it's more about the tarot. So it kind of just depends on the situation, what anybody's bringing up. That kind of determines where I'll turn my attention to. But you know, you can get like a whole big in-depth reading by using like everything at the same time. So it kind of just depends on what the person needs, really.
Gotcha. So there are kind of multiple tools that can do the same thing, but depending on what you're trying to seek, each one can have its own benefit, like higher benefit, I guess.
Right. Like, for example, like if for a yes or no question, I can use pendulum, but I can also use tarot. The tarot deck does say yes or no questions, but it's more like the pendulum is like just yes or no, but the tarot deck is like yes or no, but keep this in mind. So it kind of just depends on what depths of an answer they need.
Gotcha. Okay, so each one has its own unique ability, and it can help for different situations. Okay. Right. I like that. Yeah, I've not even known about the different categories. I may have heard about them, but I just didn't take it into concept that they kind of form the same, you know, reasoning and ability, but they're different in their own sense as well. So, right. Thank you, April. So for you personally, what do you find yourself attracted to more comparing to the three topics that we talked about? By default, I go for tarot because I feel like that gives more of an answer.
when people ask me for like yes or no questions, I feel like they're not getting the whole picture if I just say yes or no. If I'm able to give them a little bit more background with that yes or no, I feel like that will equip them better to make a decision based on, you know, whatever the outcome is. So my default is I go to tarot.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I can understand that being of more of a default. I mean, for the mere fact that I hear about it more and I see it advertised more. So obviously with people feeling so comfortable with it being like the staple of this kind of reading, there's a reason why. And
right.
Okay. So April, do you have anything else that you'd like to cover regarding card readings, or, you know, kind of collaborate with Andy on?
Well, we covered so much already.
I know we've covered quite a lot in such a short amount of time.
No, I don't think I have anything else to add. I think we've covered pretty much everything, and I think we all can agree that this is a really interesting form of communication.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I was telling Andy, I would like to see it live myself. Of course, you guys are really the only people I know personally that do tarot reading or any kind of readings, and that I would feel comfortable, you know, experience such a thing with. So next time you guys do a live, I'm going to have to jump on that and actually see it, you know, for myself.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome.
So April, before we go ahead and get off of here, are there any outlets or any ways for people to contact you regarding card readings or talking to you about the paranormal that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yes, I have a Instagram. I am Hyacide on Instagram. It's HYACIDE. I also have an Etsy shop, Divination by Hyacide, and I'm on Twitter, but it's mostly just a mirror of what I have on Instagram. So if anybody ever has any questions, my DMs on Instagram are always open. You're always welcome to send me a message and let me know. But I do offer all different kinds of readings. I offer pendulum readings, tarot readings. I'm going to be offering Reiki pretty soon. And yeah, so if you ever have any questions, just reach out.
Sweet. Thank you very much, April. And for anyone out there listening, you know, for sure, contact April if you have any questions or comments, concerns, or if you want a reading yourself. And also get back with us so we can know your results, if you don't mind sharing. Be pretty cool. Well, April, thank you very much. And I hope you're looking forward to come back onto the podcast again.
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
You know it. All right, Andy. So what'd you think about that podcast, man?
Oh, man, it was a blast, man. April is a lot of fun.
She really is, you know, and you know her a lot better than I do. This is the first time that I got to meet April, but I thought she was really down to earth, and she is very informative when it comes to different types of readings. And obviously that's where you're getting it from too. So I'm glad that you brought her on and that she was able to reach out to us and, you know, do a podcast.
Definitely. She's, you know, like I said earlier, she's a big influence on my own card reading, and she's taught me so much just within the past couple of months. And so yeah, I mean, she's a great person to learn from. She's a great person in general just to hang out with, and you know, she's a blast. So I enjoyed having her on for sure.
Right on. Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, and you know, shout out to you, April. Thank you for being on the podcast. And for everyone listening, if you wanted to reach her, you know to contact April at Hyacide on Instagram, Twitter. And she also has an Etsy account, I do believe. And you can type that out as HYACIDE. But yeah, you know, contact her if you guys want to have a reading or if you want to talk, have questions. She's a very down-to-earth person, and obviously she'll help you out. And of course, if you guys want to check us out, contact us, or even get on the podcast, you know what to do. Go to Google, type in PILT Paranormal, and like always, you'll find our Facebook, Instagram, website, podcast, all of our outlets that we have out there. And, you know, just send us an email. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, Andy. Yeah, if anyone wants to come on, you know, different topics are always welcome. You got anything, Andy?
Not that I can think of offhand, no.
All right. Well, you guys know to stay tuned for next time. We'll bring you some more podcast episodes and more content like always. And until that time happens, stay frosty.